Welcome to the Unsung Podcast. Today I'm joined by Nancy Shenker, a lady I met off a podcaster group. Had a look on her profile, had to listen to some of her podcasts, and like, wow, this lady's doing a bit of everything. So let's have her on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave, for having me on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, you've been doing this quite a while. I'm still got wet paint. I'm new, and
Well, maybe a year and a half.
yeah,
So, yeah, but you learn a lot as you go. But I've been on this earth for a long time. I'll be 69 in February.
wow, wow. I got a milestone coming up in August at 50, so. I never think about my age. I almost didn't see 20.
No, it's irrelevant. That's why my podcast is called Age Blind,
Yeah,
because I am.
nice. You've been doing business marketing and stuff for quite a while, and that's how has that helped you with the podcast side of things, just talking?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, I graduated college back in 1977. Um, had no idea what I was going to do, was an English and psych major, thought I was going to go to law school, worked in publishing for a while, and then managed to fall into financial services and rose up the ranks in financial services marketing, then started my own. Then I ended up working in the trade show industry, started my own business 21 years ago. And I always say that the only thing that's really changed in marketing since 1977 is the media that we use. The principles of marketing have remained the same.
Nice. How do you find all this AI stuff coming going crazy lately? How that's changing that whole scene for you?
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I view AI as like my really intelligent intern, and I am still the robot overlord. I wrote a book about AI back in 2017 because I knew it was coming because it was just a natural progression as
Yeah.
machines got smarter. Of course, they're going to be able to help us with all kinds of stuff. Like there was no spell check or Grammarly when I was growing up. And now I can write stuff and I have the robotic version of my English teacher correcting me as I go. So I think it's all how you look at it. If you like freak out and go, oh my God, this is going to take over my job, then it probably is. If you say, all right, this is a reality, I'm going to learn how to use it. Like if someone said to you, would you rather mop your floor with an old-fashioned squeegee mop or a vacuum cleaner? What would you say? So every technology progression makes our lives easier and faster. I think this one just scares a lot of people because they're afraid of losing control. But you'll only lose control if you let yourself lose control.
Nice. I've tried to stay away with it with this project, but what I'll do if there's someone that sends me a message and say, "Hey, can I come on your show?" I go to my AI friend on X there and say, "What can you tell me about?" And type in this username. It's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, no."
Well, I'm glad I made the screen then.
What?
The other thing that's great about AI for podcasters is if I said green and I meant to say blue, the AI can replicate my voice and I just go into the transcript and I change what I wanted to say and the AI automatically puts the correct word in my voice.
Wow, I mostly just use it for my horrible spelling and grammar sometimes.
Yeah, I do that. I do that too. But I think because I have lived through so many technology enhancements and progressions, whenever a new one comes, falls into the hands of adults, I'm like, oh, let me try this out and see if it adds value. And if it doesn't, I don't use it. And if it does, I learn it and I use it, which is how I'm using AI.
Nice. One other thing I noticed is that you've written over 9 books. That's
Yes,
crazy
I've written them
impressive.
myself, not ChatGPT.
Yes. Which one has been the most well received? Like I guess out of all of
There's
them.
they're so different. The one that people still talk about the most is called Don't Hook Up with a Dude in the Next Cube, 200 plus career secrets for 20 somethings. And it has nothing to do with, I mean, there's a section in it about office romance, but it's really more about how to navigate the workforce when you first graduate from college. And it's pretty dated, but I think a lot of it is still relevant. And then I have what I call my BizX, my business comic books. because I grew up reading Classics Illustrated comics. So I like taking really complicated stuff and distilling it down into, as I like to say, books you can read in the bathroom.
No, the closest I ever came to an office relationship is sometimes somebody eat my lunch out of the fridge in the that's it's like, oh
It's
man,
fun.
that's it.
I
We're
know. I
we're in
always say,
Facebook
well,
status now.
I always say I wrote the book with the title. That doesn't mean I always followed my own advice, but
A friend of mine always said, never, you don't dip the pen in the company ink or
yeah,
something. That's the
you don't
expression.
shit where you eat. Yes, this is my current boyfriend. My little, you asked me to bring him on as a prop. He's pixelating, but this is my little Valentine gnome that I hang out with.
That's
Good
amazing.
companion.
So you've obviously had people work with people from every corner of the world. Um,
Yeah, I mean, mostly, the US, and I do sometimes work with people in different time zones. But then we always screw up as far as the timing. It's just much easier working within North America, but that doesn't mean that I won't have guests from other places and other cultures. And I had a guest on recently who grew up in Venezuela and was homeless in Paris and just had really interesting stories. So the more you expand your horizons, as I'm sure you'll discover as you build out more episodes, you end up finding this giant community of people who just like to talk about things and tell their stories. So it's very
mhm.
connecting.
Have you ever been to Canada? There's rumor we might be becoming the 51st state soon. I don't know if that's gonna.
Yeah, not a chance. But yes, I've been to Toronto, I've been to Montreal. Um, I have a former intern who lives up in Toronto. Yeah, love Canada.
Nice. Yeah, I've lived all over East Coast, Toronto, and now I'm out in Alberta with a amazing view of the mountains, which I wouldn't trade for the world.
Yeah, I have a view of the mountains here in Arizona, which same thing. Like there's just something about waking up and seeing nature that no matter how hectic your life is, you just look out at nature and it really just is a total mind adjustment from the moment you wake up.
Nice. So you seem very busy from everything I've been reading. What do you do to unwind? Like just go off the grid,
Yeah,
watch
I
some
mean, I
music?
should say I'm busy because, my clients may be listening and they want to think that I'm busy, but I have a steady gig writing for an online business magazine. So
Okay.
that is my day job. It's a contract position. I write 15 articles a month. And then on top of that, sometimes I'll get other writing assignments. I sometimes will do brand consulting, but not as much as I used to. I'm very selective in terms of the clients that I take on. So, in addition to my paid writing, I also have what I call my passion projects. I have my own blog, I've got a travel website, and I just wrote another book about dating after 50. Although it applies to any age, I've had it reviewed by people of all ages and they say it's relevant. And that's launching February 10th, along with my new personal brand. So I'm separating my work personality and my wild, off the charts personal personality, and I'm going to run them as two separate businesses.
Now, I'll tell you a funny story about dating after 50. Well, I'm only 49, but I was single almost 3 years. And with the books you put out, the funny story, some people know, some people don't, but I was pretty happy with my dog. I have a black lab who's my world. She's my best friend. I have a 10-year-old daughter. She's my world. So I pretty much stopped looking. And then I put out this book and I get this amazing review. It's a children's book. This lady left a very kind review. She didn't have kids. She just picked it up because she had battled some of the same demons I had with PTSD. And she left this amazing review. So this was off Amazon, and I live in a town of 3,000 people, like 3,870 something. And so I reached out to her and we just clicked. We both lost over 150 pounds. We have the same kind of demons. And now we've been together 3 months.
Oh, wow,
Uh,
that's a great story. Yeah, you
so,
never know. I always say, you talk to strangers wherever you go. You just, never know where your person might be.
because I
So,
mean, I was trying some of those dating apps and stuff, and oh man, I don't know
oh,
when Oh,
No. Yes, I've heard all kinds of analogies, like, trying to find the one card at Walmart that has all good wheels, or shopping in the dented can of the supermarket. But that said, I've met some really, really great people online, some of whom have turned into friends, some of whom I've had, short-term relationships with. So, it's kind of the luck of the draw. And yeah, I don't want to have my Noam is my boyfriend forever. I was married for 27 years. I've been single um, on and off for about 12. So my person's out there somewhere. I'm confident.
nice. Now you mentioned with the marketing and the AI and that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know about you, but lately I'm seeing a flood of these digital marketing make $5,000 in every 2 days kind of stuff. It's just being flooded lately with that. It's all I see when I refresh Facebook.
Yeah, no, I just, ignore that stuff. The equivalent in my generation was, Publishers Clearinghouse, you can win $1 million. And, you just have to be selective. You have to do your own vetting.
Yeah.
Um, But, backtracking a little bit where you talked about your demons, I think that's also kind of a misconception that just because people look like they have their shit together and they look great on Google and they have good active social media lives, that their lives are all hunky-dory. And I was actually talking to a girlfriend the other day and telling her about some of my demons. I mean, I've been a size 0 and a size 16 stretchy waist pants. So I've battled weight issues for most of my life. And she was kind of shocked to hear some of the stuff that I've dealt with. But yeah, we all have our demons, and they sometimes pop out at us at strange times. I had a really bad day yesterday, and I coined a new phrase. I said, you've heard of ED, erectile dysfunction, which I'm doing a show on this month in honor of Valentine's Day. But I said, I have, what did I call it? I said, I've got ET, which is like extreme triggers. Like
Yeah.
somebody could just like look at me funny or say something hurtful, and I have a tendency to spin out, even at the age of 68, almost 69. So, the demons never go away. You just get a lot better at locking them in the closet or
Yeah, for me, well, 30, almost 29 years, I battled PTSD. And it was in 2012. I had a bunch of military guys get together and nominate me for to be knighted into the Order of St. George. Should have been one of the proudest moments of my life, but I had constant panic attacks for 4 hours because I'm sitting in this church in downtown Toronto with like military royalty, like generals, like I guess maybe like a 4-star general in the US, just like all these military people are just all surrounding me and like I don't deserve to be here, like in my head. And I
oh yeah.
freaked.
I mean, I do professional speaking and I still feel like throwing up
Yeah,
every time I get up on stage. I've gotten way better at it and I've learned to control it. I majored in behavioral psychology undergrad. I've learned breathing techniques. I just, as I've gotten older, I think I care less about crowd reaction,
yeah.
but it never really totally goes away. I was a shy kid and which people don't even believe now. But I'm like, yeah, if you had asked me to do this when I was 8 years old, I probably would have, vomited all over my keyboard. Although there were no keyboards back then. So whatever the equivalent was.
Well, that's true. You mentioned that as well, but I met I got to go to a Chris Cornell show with 8 veterans, and we were sitting down backstage behind the show, and he's got like a fidget ball in his hand with all these buttons on it. And I've noticed he's just clicking and clicking and clicking. And he said, what, even I get nervous. Like I've been doing this for 20 years, singing in front of like 30. This is how what he had to do to decompress before his shows was play with this little fidget ball.
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, like you're just like us. It's
Oh,
never
yeah. No, and I
that's a
do
big
think that a
realization.
lot of us who do end up launching podcasts or going on the speaking circuit, I've done a little stand-up comedy. I think a lot of it is just lifelong compensation for not being able to do that in our youth.
Yeah.
So yeah, the early life equivalent would have been when I was picked to give a demonstration of new math, which I don't remember what that was. With the math teaching protocol has probably changed a million times since then. But I even remember what I was wearing. We went into the Hilton Hotel and there was a room full of people, and I had to explain how I solved math problems. And I remember thinking, like, a combination of this is really weird and scary, and I'm going to faint, and like, oh, this is kind of cool. But yeah, that was my first recollection of like an actual speaking gig when I was on stage in front of a crowd.
It's amazing.
I wish I had video or pictures.
Yeah, there's lots of things I'm thankful I don't have video for back in my drinking days. That was all before Facebook stuff came out and
Yep,
pictures. Thank
yep.
God there was all just those old
I
ones.
know you're not going to see me running for public office anytime soon,
No, no,
just in
never.
case somebody does have the pictures.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of people on your shows. What's one, I don't know, one moment from that stays with you every time you're,
Wow, so many, so many. I had a guy on my show, but the whole notion of age blind is that people who are decades apart can still have similar experiences. And so, a young guy who lived in my apartment building, met him when he first graduated grad school. We became friends. I was kind of like a mother figure to him because he was living in a new state, didn't know anybody. But we discovered that even though he's gay, I'm straight, we both were open to dating people who lived in other states. So we did an episode on long distance dating. That was a fun one. I also have a friend who's a divorce attorney, and she happened to mention something about Melania Trump's prenup, and I ended up getting trolled, like 3,000 views and comments in an hour. So that
oh
was
boy,
I took that one down just because I don't want that level of hate and anxiety in my life.
no,
Um, and it wasn't even like she was saying anything political. She was just talking about divorce law. But that
wow,
was an interesting lesson for me. I mean, the good news was that I knew that people were listening. But yeah, and my latest thing is I do these episodes called the Salt Box, SALT standing for Sex, Life, and Tech, where I bring four people together who don't know each other.
yeah,
It's almost like, some bizarro mystery, and they all get into the podcast, and it's like Hollywood Squares. They're all in their little boxes and they don't know each other. But by the end of the episode, they're all like, joking around and calling each other out on stuff. So that's a lot of fun.
well, that sounds really interesting. That what's the weirdest question you've ever asked when you were a guest on someone's podcast?
The weirdest question that I've ever been asked.
Yeah,
Um, Whoa, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been asked anything so weird that I couldn't answer it. I did hesitate when you asked me like which of my episodes, was the best, just because I've had so many. There've
yeah,
been a couple that I didn't air. There was one where I was talking about cheating in relationships, and my guest started out very early on saying that anybody who cheats is morally bankrupt. And I'm like, all right, that means that 50% of the population is morally bankrupt. Like, where do you go from there? And it was early on. I mean, maybe if I had her on as a guest today, I would have been, a little bit more provocative and contentious.
hmm
But I just like didn't know. It was so unexpected, and I didn't know where to go from there. And I violently disagreed with her. But I didn't know what to say. So sometimes, you get those, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you get sort of dealing with the weird things that happen.
for sure. I do have I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
I asked this at the end of every little show I'm doing here. And so is there 100-meter competition, pigeon carrying contest. How many pigeons do you think you'd have in your arms at the end of the race?
100 meters, pigeon carry. So I'm holding the pigeons.
People are handing your pigeons,
And I
and
don't have a wagon
no,
or,
just your arms.
But I put them like on my back or on my head?
If you're still carrying them at the end, that counts.
Yeah, I mean, I would think I could probably maybe get 10 pigeons across the finish line.
Nice.
What's your record been?
My guess that said the highest was my friend Dan, who's just on with me, but he's in a wheelchair, and so he said he had an unfair advantage, but
Right.
he figured at least a dozen. Um, that one, the paramedic that saved my life, she actually works on a farm. She said four or five, I don't remember, but she had to carry them by her legs upside down. Um, Another guest I had on was putting objects on his desk in his arms, try and knock out how many he could carry. But
So they wouldn't like, I don't know that much about pigeon physiology. I grew up in New York, so I just usually kind of avoided them and their poop. But I was just thinking I could put my arms out and they would fly to me and they would sit on my outstretched arms.
well,
But
there you never know. That could happen at all. And you
and,
could
and I
carry it.
just thought, not to backtrack, but I just thought of another weird thing that happened to one of my podcasts. Somebody's green screen fell on their head during the podcast.
Oh boy,
So that was a funny moment. We recovered well from that, but
nice.
I'm always very careful not to lean back too far so it doesn't happen to me.
All right. So people want to find you, find your podcast. I'll put your links in my description,
Yeah,
but
it's called Age Blind and it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. My last name is spelled Shenker. So if you just Google Age Blind Shenker, it always pops up. And I'm not going to reveal the name of my new website, but it will be live on February 10th, and there will be an announcement on my podcast. So you'll be able to hear about it there.
well, it's perfect because this will air just after that date, so I can put all those links in there. And
Awesome sauce. By the way, love your logo. Congratulations on your podcast launch. I love what you're doing. Again, it's the miracle that is social media. You meet random people in strange ways, and great things come out of that.
well, it's funny. The podcast group where I found you on this guy had been asking how to get his podcast out to people in Newfoundland, which is where I'm from. So I reached out to him, gave him some ideas, and turned out we're distantly related.
Oh,
Uh,
how bizarre. That's
Same
great.
hometown, like his grandmother, my great grandmother knew, like, oh, so he's like my fifth cousin. And
Love that. Love that.
so I had him on. He's lost a bunch of weight like me, and it's you never know who you're gonna run into. So I love
Yeah,
it
I mean, I would love to have you on. I'm doing an episode later in the spring about detoxing and spring cleaning your life, and would love to have you in the salt box to talk about your weight loss journey.
for sure. I'm 100% in.
Awesome. Well,
All right,
thank
it
you.
was a pleasure speaking with you, and
Likewise.
I want to be on that Hollywood Square show of yours sometime.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Take care. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.